Alright guys, hello and welcome to the Switched On Streams podcast with us, the Switched On Squad. Hang on, no, I'll get it right one day. That's Pomster and
G'day.
I'm Brennan Hoof. A lot of news coming out this week, but before we get into that, let's have a chat and see how our weeks have been in the gaming world. Stu, Pomster, what's been going on in your week?
Yeah, look, I've been playing a little bit more of Final Fantasy 16, which
Yay!
still nowhere near as much as you by the sounds of it. But I'm sure you'll get into a bit more of that.
Yeah.
There was some new DLC on Sniper Elite 5 as well, which I think is the last one of those that they're going to release. But it's still doing pretty well.
That's interesting,
it's
actually.
Been fun so far.
Because they're putting that on, I don't know if it's the monthly games or whether they're putting it in the catalogue next month.
Mm-hmm.
On PlayStation.
So you won't get all the DLC missions included with that, I wouldn't assume. No. But the campaign's pretty good. So yeah, that's an interesting one. How about you?
Final Fantasy 16. It has kicked my ass, and I've kicked its ass, and now I'm at a point where I'm ready to give up for a little while, which is very disappointing because I've beaten the game now. I beat that last night. It took me a good 45 minutes to do the final boss. Relatively simple. Didn't fail or anything. It was relatively easy, in a sense. Just time consuming. And now I'm 2 trophies away from getting the platinum. One for filling out all the icon stuff, and the other one for finishing it on the New Game Plus Final Fantasy mode, which is a lot harder. If you get to that point and you want to platinum it, make sure you hit level 50 first.
Right.
Because if you don't, there's a big jump when you hit level 50 on like how much power you get.
Mm-hmm.
I went in at level 49, and the first few fights were really, really tough. Well, they weren't tough, but they were just like time-consuming compared to what it had been earlier before the final boss. Then once I hit level 50 and level 51, you just start getting back to that. Make sure as well you get the sword. Always go to Damarang, I think it is. It's the best sword that you can get.
Probably go to Damarung. It's like a German fable.
Yeah, so make sure you get that before you finish the first playthrough. You do need to get it again. This is like a revamped version during the second playthrough anyway to get the ultimate weapon. But yeah, it's a must-have to get through those last bits of the game. And
wow.
I think it's going to take me another week or so to get through it. I mean, obviously now I can skip through all the cutscenes, and there are a lot of cutscenes.
Yeah. It will save you a lot of time, but if you think about how much time you've put in just to do that first playthrough, and you've essentially got to do at least half, maybe 2/3 of that again to complete your second playthrough, and it might be harder.
Yeah. Well, Final Fantasy
you're in for the long haul.
Final Fantasy mode definitely makes it a lot harder. Obviously everyone scales up, there's more enemies, there's stronger enemies at points where there was quite weak enemies before, and there's just a lot more. Like the place is just littered with enemies. So
I usually find that when I do a New Game Plus that I'm usually way quicker, even if the New Game Plus is harder, even with your the scaling and keeping all of your weapons. It's still just like knowing what you have to do and what you don't have to do, like the stuff that you can just skip past. You're not exploring places, kind of aimlessly looking for things all the time. So it might be way quicker for you.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to do everything again because I don't really need to. But then if I want the ultimate weapon to make those final bosses a bit easier, probably going to have to.
Here's a talking point. I heard you say before you've beaten the game. Now, some people consider beating the game to be completing the campaign, completing the story, and some people consider beating the game to mean like 100% completing the game.
Yeah,
Obviously, you think it should be the former.
All right, well, no, so I probably should rephrase that. I've beaten the story.
Yeah.
I did everything there was to do. I did all the side quests. I did all the hunts. Collected everything that there was to collect. Made all the weapons. Did everything I possibly could. And the fact that I'm going into this Final Fantasy Plus playthrough, Final Fantasy mode playthrough, with only 2 trophies left remaining, sort of shows that I did everything I possibly could.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just asking your opinion on what you think.
Yeah, so
beating the game should mean
beating the game for me, especially doing things on PlayStation, means getting the platinum.
Mm.
If you've got the platinum and there's nothing else to do, basically, if there's no DLC coming or anything like that, then you've done it all. There's no point really going back to it unless you really want to go for another playthrough. Mm-hmm. On saying that, I actually think that this game has quickly become my second favourite Final Fantasy game.
Wow.
It's really, really good. Really,
and for a long-term fan of the series, that's that's something to say.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake, quickly closed in on the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if it quite made top 3 for me, but it was definitely a top 5. But this has got to be number 2 or 3. Can't quite decide. Sorry, whether I like it more or less than Final Fantasy X.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
10 had some fun stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got the mini game in Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
And 16 doesn't offer anything like that, which is a bit of a disappointment. But the story's really good.
I haven't been, as a musician, I haven't been quite as convinced about the soundtrack in 16 as I have of a lot of previous Final Fantasy games. Historically, Final Fantasy games have some of the best soundtracks in video game music, and although 16 is not bad at all, I'm not quite as convinced yet. Some of the names that you brought up are like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X. They're like legendary soundtracks.
Yeah.
And I don't think 16 is quite a legendary
Final
soundtrack.
Fantasy VIII. the best, in my opinion, of the Final Fantasies. And I think it also has one of the best soundtracks. But one of the things you can do in this game is obviously buy music from vendors throughout the game. So, and that does. There are some really good tracks in that. I do like the what do you call it? The victory music.
Mm-hmm.
How they've sort of changed that from being orchestral to more of a sort of choir. Sort of thing. Yeah. I really like that. That really stood out for me.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably move onto the smaller news articles for the week.
Yeah, sure.
And since we're talking about Final Fantasy 16 and the soundtrack, they're releasing a Final Fantasy 16 musical in Japan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, they're known to do these sorts of events for the bigger Final Fantasy games at times. So it's not a huge surprise to me. But I think of what I've experienced of the story so far, that it possibly could make a good musical. I think it will probably have a limited audience, let's say, but I think it still could be successful, at least in Japan. I doubt it will make it overseas.
No. Well, one of the things that they normally do is like the orchestral type shows with where they do the soundtracks and stuff. But for them to actually do a musical, the only other one that I can think of that they've done was Persona 5.
Right.
I think they did that over there.
Mm-hmm.
They did a full proper play musical production for it. But this is really cool. I am actually going to look at going to Japan soon, so while over there,
so you can line up the timings.
Try and go and see it if it's on, because that'll be pretty awesome, to be honest. The next piece of news, everybody's sick of hearing about it by now, and we've spoken about it a lot over the last few weeks. The ruling's in on the FTC trial with Xbox, and Xbox are clear to go ahead and make it happen. Obviously, they've only got this weekend to get it done. And the CMA over in the UK have paused their legal battle. But, just to throw the spanner in the works, the FTC have appealed.
Mm-hmm.
Now...
yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's all right. This to me just screams FTC's just making a point of... They know they're not going to win the appeal. They're just trying to deter others from... making
it's a normal part of the legal process anyway. I did also read that that Microsoft are planning on selling some of their cloud gaming shares in the UK in order to appease the CMA, just to as a kind of goodwill gesture, I suppose. So it seems like Microsoft are kind of ticking all the boxes, so to speak, and the CMA and the FTC are kind of clutching at straws a little bit.
Yeah. One thing I didn't realise and didn't hear about until this week was that I know it had been sort of briefly spoken about, but it hadn't actually been formally sort of mentioned when I'd read what had been said by people that were on the stand from PlayStation and Nintendo and all of that. But Microsoft have actually made a deal to keep Call of Duty on the other platforms for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And also taking it to Nintendo Switch. So that's pretty good. But then that takes me down to what is it Jim Ryan at PlayStation said?
Mm-hmm. I think it was him. Yeah.
That what happens once that deal ends. Once that's gone, where does that leave everyone? They've also stated that none of the Activision Blizzard games will be going onto Game Pass for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I suppose we'll have to wait and see, but it is potentially worrying, as Jim Ryan said, if Microsoft are on top in 10 years' time, when that deal or that agreement ends, and they are allowed to make it an exclusive at that point, then suddenly that could be seen as a bit of a monopoly.
But at the same time, that also gives PlayStation 10 years to try and come up with a competitor.
It does, yeah. Yeah.
And there's no telling that Call of Duty will still be on top of the world in 10 years' time.
No, I mean, it wasn't the kind of the giant of the first-person shooter world that it is now. Once upon a time, there was a time when Medal of Honor was probably bigger than Call of Duty, and
very quickly.
Yeah, but
Just
you get what I mean.
off.
Like, yeah, And you can look at various different genres to see something that was the kind of king of that genre, and then it was overtaken by something else. So there's no reason that PlayStation, Sony couldn't come up with a competitor to Call of Duty in-house that would be more successful.
Yep. I mean, they are bringing Killzone back. It probably won't do the job, but I mean, if they're innovative enough with it, there's no reason why it couldn't be.
Yeah, I doubt Killzone would ever be that big of a challenger to Call of Duty, but just simply because it's never been wildly popular. It's never had a release that's been anything like some of the bigger Call of Duty games. But who knows? Maybe it could be.
But like I said, like if they're innovative enough in what they do with the game and the story and multiplayer modes, and anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people will go and play whichever game is the best most of the time.
Yeah. The next bit of news we have is The Last of Us TV series getting nominated for Emmys. I think it was 22 or 23 Emmys they got nominated for, the second most behind Succession. And this being the first video game adaptation to be nominated for major awards, which is huge news and a step in the right direction for all video game adaptations, and probably really sets the bar, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no reason that video game adaptations to television and cinema shouldn't be really successful. It's been done with books for years and years now. Why can't it be successful with video games? There are plenty of fantastic stories out there in the video game sphere that would make great television or great film. So yeah, I absolutely think it's a step in the right direction. And Last of Us is a great example of a really deep story that obviously makes good television. I haven't watched a whole bunch of it myself, but it doesn't surprise me that it's been that successful. I think the casting choices were great for a start.
Spot on. I watched I think the first half of the season, and then kind of got caught up with not being able to watch it around the daughter. She was getting a bit scared of it at times, so and then I'd find myself doing this sort of stuff and streaming at night, so didn't really leave myself a lot of time to finish watching the series, but it's on my list to go back to now that I've got a little bit more time. But I suggest go watch it. It's fantastic from what I've seen. Pedro Pascal just kills it as he does with everything. And I can't remember what the...
Bella Ramsey.
She's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
So... And obviously, there was the memes going around about season 2. Those that know and those that don't know. Which are always funny to see. You see, well, it also depends now when we're going to get that second series, with the actors going on strike now in solidarity with the writers, which could cause some havoc for TV shows and movies over the next few years.
Definitely could, yeah.
Speaking of The Last of Us and Naughty Dog, Evan Wells, co-CEO, is retiring after 25 years.
Yeah.
Leaving Neil Druckmann in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's a bit of a strange one, this, in some sense. You don't really hear much of people in the video game industry retiring.
Especially not at their age. Both of them are, still relatively young, really. Certainly, neither of them are approaching typical retirement age.
No.
So yeah, it's a little bit out of the blue. But I don't know. Maybe people closer to Naughty Dog could have seen this coming. Do you get any inkling about why he retired?
He just said it's time for him to to spend some more time with the family and that sort of stuff. So I did have the statement pulled up somewhere, but I've closed it down by accident. I can pull it up. It won't take a sec. There we go. I didn't have it on. Having a fucking mental blank on the word I was. That he's been discussing with their leadership for well over a year, and with Neil for a lot longer than that. Decision brings with it an overwhelming and conflicting emotions, but I've come to realise that I'm content with my time at the studio and all that we've accomplished together in the 25 years. Yeah, so it's just says that it's the perfect time to step away, and he's confident that he's leaving the studio in great hands. So
yeah, right.
And he's been there for 30 years. I think he's been towards the top for 25. I think Crash 3 was when he came into the studio. So
Crash Bandicoot Warped.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a lead designer on that. He did a couple of games before that. He did Gex, but yeah, he became lead designer in '98. So yeah, he's been
long time.
and then he's been co-president since 2005.
Yeah.
And Neil Druckmann only became co-president alongside him in 2020. So he's been at the top a lot longer than Neil Druckmann has.
Yeah, and the way that he words the fact that he's been talking to Neil for a few years about it, that probably makes me think that he's brought Neil in as co-president, and then to sort of teach.
Yeah, so like a succession plan. Yeah.
But good luck to him, and wish him all the best. And thanks for everything he's done at Naughty Dog over the last 25 years.
Oh yeah, some great games.
Some big, fantastic games that he's overseen in that time. And hopefully Neil can carry that on and take us into the future of Naughty Dog. So, before we get into our big story of the week, two things we've got to do. The first is a question for you. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you think 2023 is the best year for gaming? With all the massive releases we've already had and still got to come, what do you think, Stu?
That's a very good question. I definitely think that we've entered a time when there should be potential for that, given we had a couple of really rocky years with COVID, obviously, and a lot of delayed releases and developers just kind of struggling to release games on the same kind of schedules and quality that they were used to. And now we're kind of back to normal, and they've thrown everything at it, and 2023 in effect should show the fruits of that labor. So I think there's potential for it, but I think in terms of what's come out so far, although there have been some really great games and quite a few
games,
great Game of the Year candidates. I'm just trying to think back to like mid-2000s, mid-2010s, whether or not there were any years in there that...
2017 is probably the only year that takes it. I I did think about this the other day. Someone else was talking about it, and I was like, oh,
I think
2017 was a great year. Like, we had Resident Evil 7, Super Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein 2, Assassin's Creed Origins, Breath of the Wild, Prey, Cuphead, The Evil Within 2, South Park, The Fractured But Whole, Destiny 2 was released in 2017, Injustice 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, Middle-earth Shadow of War. Oh, what happened there?
Anyway, back now.
Yep. I wonder if it was just yours or... yeah, so Middle-earth Shadow of War, Crash Bandicoot The Insane Trilogy, Forza Motorsport 7, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Call of Duty World War 2. Like, there's some big games. Real big games.
Yeah, for sure. Although maybe that's not a great year for like really big game of the year candidates. I think there have been other years where there have been like 4 or 5 games that could be game of the year, and in that list that you just read out, I don't think there were quite that many.
That was just off Google that I've gone through.
Yeah. So maybe this year, by the end of the year, it may be one of those where it is really difficult to pick like a game of the year and to say whether or not it's been one of the best years in gaming history in terms of releases. It very well might be.
Just on what we've already had this year alone, Jedi Survivor, Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, Dead Island 2, Final Fantasy 16, Forspoken, Company of Heroes 3, Resident Evil 4, Pikmin 4, Persona 4 Golden, Oxenfree 2, Dead Space Remake. And that's not even
and I would add to that Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah.
Like that, so there's obviously games missing off these lists. Like, I'm just running off what's popped up on the first thing in Google. Like, there's some big games.
For sure.
Big games this year. And we've still got Starfield to come out this year. We've still got Spider-Man 2 to come out this year. Assassin's Creed. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Payday 3 probably won't be a Game of the Year contender, but it's still...
I wouldn't have thought so.
It's still going to be a big release. There's still a lot of people that are going to be out there buying that game and playing that game. So, to me, I think it is. And with it also being halfway through the year, what's your thoughts on, or what's been your Game of the Year for the first half of the year?
It's tough. For me, I think my instinct is to say Hogwarts Legacy. When playing that game, for most of the time that I was playing it, I had this feeling of like, yeah, this is probably going to be Game of the Year. That doesn't mean something can't top it or something hasn't topped it. But that would be my pick so far. But I would be very keen to see Spider-Man 2 because that very well could top it.
I think Spider-Man 2 is releasing at the right time for that sort of thing. Right before the Video Game Awards.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has their own awards thing, but like the Video Game Awards is the pinnacle as far as most people are concerned these days.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, I would have gone the same. I think I would have picked Hogwarts Legacy, until Diablo and Final Fantasy came out. And
yeah, maybe I haven't played enough for Final Fantasy 16 yet.
I think I was leaning towards Diablo, but I've got to pick Final Fantasy 16, and it's going to take. Probably going to have to be Starfield or Spider-Man being the best thing I've ever played to beat it.
I have to say that Final Fantasy games tend not to do quite as well as they should in video game awards, and perhaps that's just a like Anglo-centric bias from the awards shows. I don't know. It could be different this year though with Final Fantasy 16. Obviously the setting and the language and everything is a lot more focused around English, really.
Yeah.
So that might help it. Who knows? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It will be, and Spider-Man 2 surely will be really good. So it will be a contender, regardless. I would have thought.
Yeah. Oh, Tears of the Kingdom. How do we even forget that came out this half of the year?
Of course. Yes. Good
Wow.
point. Wow. Yeah, that throws a spanner in the works.
Yeah. And I think 2017 was 2017 when Ghost of Tsushima came out.
I think it was probably later than that.
I think it was later than that. Now that I think about it,
I think it was probably
it was way later than
2019.
that, because it was the same year that 2020. Yeah, it was just
2020. Yeah.
just before, after the pandemic hit.
Yeah, it's kind of
after.
during lockdown and stuff around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, because I spent a lot of time during lockdown playing that. Took me about actually I say that it took me about 4 days to platinum the game.
But 4 like solid days.
Yeah. I was fitting in a good 12-hour shift on those games back then. Although that's what I've been doing with Final Fantasy the last few days.
Yeah,
I've been trying to film and make some content for the YouTube channels. But yeah, look, like I say, for me, it's got to be Final Fantasy 16. It's something that's really grabbed me. Something that a Final Fantasy game hasn't done since Final Fantasy. I wouldn't say 10 really grabbed me that much, but I was in a weird place with gaming back then. But Final Fantasy 8 definitely, it's grabbed my attention like that one. So yeah, that's my pick anyway for the first half of the year. And obviously towards the end of the year we'll probably pick differently, and we will do a show probably dedicated to it. Maybe we do maybe we have a look around that time where if you're not busy we'll do a live reacts to the video game awards.
Yeah.
We'll sit and watch it.
That's good.
I think it's usually on a Friday, so I know you've usually got a lot of work that you do on a Friday.
Are we forgetting anything from the end of last year? Because that stuff rolls over into the next year of Video Game Awards, doesn't it?
I think it's only December.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick look. Video games. Release.
Just want to check because there might be some big release in December that we're forgetting about.
2022. And it's taking me to movies, not video games. God damn it. There probably is, there might not be Game of the Year contenders, but there's a couple on there that are up there. Horizon Forbidden West. Callisto Protocol. High on Life.
I think
it's got on here God of War Ragnarok, but I'm pretty sure. Did that not go into last year's?
Possibly.
Did
It might have done.
God of War Ragnarok take out last year's? So I don't think this...
I reckon Horizon Forbidden West, if that is in this year's Game Awards, that it's probably not a Game of the Year candidate, but it might be a candidate for
so that
Game of the Year in its genre.
That release is wrong. That So the only thing really is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Wave 3, which was just a course pack, Callisto Protocol, High on Life, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion, The Witcher 3 on next gen, and Marvel's Midnight Suns, which really didn't hit home.
Okay. All right. so we don't have to worry about that.
No. So High on Life could be up there, though. That was a very fun game.
Yeah. So halfway through the year so far, our picks are Final Fantasy 16 from you and Hogwarts Legacy from me.
Yeah. And I guarantee they'll be what we think are, top 5 for the year, but whether or not they'll be what take it at the end of the year for Game of the Year.
Yeah, they should both be candidates. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Bracket time. Oh, I missed a bit of short news. The PlayStation Access controller.
Oh, yes.
Releasing on December 6th. I think later this month, the pre-orders for them open up, and they've stated that you can connect 2 of them together and a DualSense controller, which is pretty cool. And there's a lot of other peripherals that, like headsets and stuff like that can connect to them as well. So
I'd love to see how that works.
There are some stuff out there, some videos and stuff on how it works. But this is a great step in the right direction for making games as accessible as can be for everybody out there.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I honestly can't wait to see these things work. I mean, I know they're not designed for able-bodied people like us, but I wouldn't mind giving them a go just to sort of see what they have to go through to experience what we experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And jokes aside, because I'm lazy. So if I can use my chin to get an advantage on FIFA, let's face it, the more controls the better for me.
Yeah. You can assign macros to them. That would be great.
Yeah, it'd be unreal. Have a shot, bang. That'd be great.
Exactly.
All right.
Use your chin to do skill moves.
Oh, well, I can't do it with my fingers, so I might as well do it with something. All right, so bracket time. So this year we're doing 1991. Some honourable mentions that we've decided we're not picking. And I've got a sneaking feeling that... Oh, we said we weren't going to do wild cards, didn't we? Because we had to cut it to a certain point.
Yeah, so we're doing 1990 to 2021. So that gives us 32, which is... Oh, sorry, 64, because we're picking 2 from each year.
Yeah. Oh, that actually... I might.
I tell you what we can do. After we finish naming all 64, we can look back through and we can pick a few wild cards to replace some of the weakest choices in the entire bracket. So there might be one. There might be like.
We've picked these though, like.
Yeah, maybe.
That's just I don't know. We'll go through and we'll see.
Because there might be some years, like a 1991 where there might be 3 really strong releases, and
Well, I'm looking
example,
I'm looking
a
at this.
2002 where you want to switch out one of the 2 choices.
Well, have a listen to this. Let me know what you think. These are the honourable mentions, the ones we didn't pick. Duke Nukem, Another World, Microsoft's Free Cell, Sonic the Hedgehog, Zelda: A Link to the Past, Battletoads, Metroid 2, Street Fighter 2, and Golden Axe. There's some big names there.
Yeah, I do feel sorry for Duke Nukem. That's
Zelda's A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Another World.
And, Sonic.
Yeah, Sonic. Sonic and Another World, games I grew up playing during the early 90s. And Golden Axe. But I mean, the 2 that we've picked, you've picked one that I was tossing up on, and then I've picked one of my childhood favourites. So your pick would be?
My pick is Lemmings.
That's a great choice. Absolutely fantastic choice.
I mean, I like strategy games. I've always liked strategy and puzzle games. So, and Lemmings is just a classic. It's an icon of that style of video games.
Yeah, I used to spend hours and hours getting stuck on levels. Getting little lemmings killed.
Back when video games used to be, hard.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yep. So my pick is the arcade classic and the Sega classic of Streets of Rage.
Oh, yes. What a great choice. Actually, didn't know that this was your choice, but I wholeheartedly agree. It's a great game.
Did you end up playing Streets of Rage 4 that they released a few years ago?
I haven't, no, but I actually think Streets of Rage 2 is even better than the first one, but I haven't played the fourth one.
Yeah, I preferred the story on Streets of Rage 1.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they tried to do a little bit too much with the characters in Streets of Rage 2, but I prefer the characters in that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's... The fourth one that they released a few years ago, much like they did with the Shredder's Revenge of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they sort of did an unofficial successor sort of thing, or unofficial sequel that was released on consoles a couple of years ago. That I had a lot of fun playing through that game. Maybe one that we should probably look and see if we can get a bit of a multiplayer stream going. Because that'll be quite fun. So, all right, on to our big story. I'm just looking at my notes, and I've missed so much. There's so much EA stuff written in my notes that I've skipped over articles. That were supposed to be in the small thing. So. EA hiring for the third Jedi game already. They've got what seems to be job openings up on LinkedIn that they've posted that sort of make it seem like they're looking at the third game and moving from Unreal Engine 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
By what the sounds of it is. One that seems to annoy you a little bit. EA have announced UFC 5 with a September 23rd reveal.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this on previous podcasts, but I'm a big fan of the Fight Night games. The understanding that I had, and I don't know if this is true, is that UFC had an exclusive deal with EA that allowed them only to make UFC games in the combat video game space. Until I think that was a 4-game deal. So the understanding was, at least as far as I saw it, was that once UFC 4 was completed, they could then start working on a new Fight Night game. Now, that might still be the case. They might be releasing new UFC games and doing Fight Night now, which would be good if they are, because that's what it always should have been. But we'll see.
Yeah. I'm just going to make sure there's nothing else I've missed. Yep, we did that, we did that, we did that, we did that. We did that one. Alright, finally let's get into EA Sports FC, our main story of the night. So, obviously we've all now seen the release or reveal that they did on the 14th, which is the day that we're recording this, which coincides nicely with our FIFA night that we'll be having later after this recording.
We're going to have to rename that.
Yeah. I actually don't mind the when we've been talking about it and saying EA Sports Football Club, I'm like, it's such a shit name. But the way they say FC24, I like it.
Yeah, FC24 is fine. EAFC24 is a bit of a mouthful, but if you just say FC24...
I like it. I actually like it more than FIFA, to be honest.
Wow.
That's... One thing I have noticed with watching the trailers and that this week, is it just me or do the players look a bit off?
I reckon they always do. Personally, I reckon they have ever since they switched to the Frostbite engine back in, what was that, FIFA 15 or something?
Yeah, that was back when cause they made that Frostbite engine for...
Battlefield, I think.
Yeah. Which...
Yeah, I think it was for Battlefield.
Yeah. Which is crazy. Might be time to update what they're doing. But did you see the Christian Benteke post about it?
No.
So during the trailer, when you see Sam Kerr walking through the tunnel, Benteke's there talking to, is it Insigne, the Italian striker?
Right. I think so. Yeah.
And he's like 5'8" or something, and Benteke's 6'2", and they're the same height.
Yeah, right.
And Benteke's like posted the original photo, and then one underneath it going fixed it, and he's just stretched himself, so he's off camera. Like, that's
little bit of an oversight.
Absolute quality. Look, we'll start at the start of this reveal. Obviously, the EA CEO came out. I didn't realise he was an Aussie lad. And,
yeah, that was a surprise for me as well.
I actually really enjoyed his little story about him growing up and, you know, why he's in love with football so much. I thought that was a nice little touch to start the show.
I thought his line about his beer freezing over and saying, "Oh, this is proper football," was a little bit cheesy, but
yeah, but I mean, if you haven't been to a game and your beer's got too cold that you almost can't drink it, then you probably haven't really experienced proper football. But yeah, no, I thought it was a really nice touch, and of course he worked on the FIFA team until about 2010 when he went to EA, or I think he started at EA and then moved on to the team and then worked with that team till 2010,
something like that. Yeah.
They obviously spoke a little bit about FC Futures, where they're putting more money into sort of grassroots, and one thing I did take away was they're making training videos for coaches to use with young
Yes.
people, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah. Although I was a bit confused what they were talking about when they also said that they're going to use the video game to help train younger players, because they did mention that too. And I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure. Not
Well,
quite sure how they use it, but
when we used to coach the team, obviously you couldn't make training and stuff like that. Like I'd talk to the girls that we were coaching and say to them, like, go and watch this game, or go and watch, a game on the weekend, and pick out the player that plays in your position and watch how they play. And try and learn their positioning and what they're doing and that sort of thing. So it might be a similar sort of thing where, they create like a pro club sort of situation where they're teaching that player and locking them into certain positions and stuff like that, and then taking them out onto a pitch and going, right, now you've just done that in there on here, now go do it over here.
yeah, possibly.
They could also just be using it in a sense of, all right, the training modes. This is how you do this on the training mode. Now we go over here and we try doing it.
I suppose if you can get a young kid interested in doing a slalom on the video game,
yep,
then they might be more interested in doing it on the training ground, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously bringing a couple of new women's competitions into the game.
Yes.
With the German and Spanish women's leagues entering, which I'm not going to try and... Well, I know it's Liga F, and... Is it the Bundesliga Frauen or Frauen Bundesliga?
Yeah, you're testing my knowledge as well. It's something like that.
And what seemed when they brought Alex Scott out was the Women's Champions League.
Yes, that's right.
Which is fantastic for all the female players that want to go out there and have the same experience that you can do with the men's side of the game.
They didn't make it clear, although I'm not sure if you were able to find this information out, whether or not you'll be able to do like a career mode in the same vein that you can do a men's career mode.
I didn't actually look at it because I hadn't actually thought about that.
Yeah, but whether it will be as kind of full featured as the men's career mode is, presumably now that you could do the Women's Super League and the Champions League and the Women's World Cup can be built in as well. Potentially, it could be just as full featured as the men's player career, I guess.
Yeah. And the opportunity.
So it'd be interesting to see if they do that.
Yeah. Sticking with the women's stuff, we also have women coming into Ultimate Team. And you can put women and men on the same team as you can in pro clubs and Volta. Yeah,
well, they've done this with pro clubs for a year, so we know that it kind of works in pro clubs. It does mean that the kind of scaling of attributes is essential. But I don't see any reason why that can't work. Ultimate Team is already a kind of contrived thing anyway, that you've got legends of the game playing in their prime with current players, so why couldn't you also have female players in there?
I can see a lot of streamers going up in arms. Can you imagine?
How
come? Maybe not up in arms, but I'm all I can imagine right now is Danny Aaron's opening a pack and pulling out some 18-year-old Spanish female goalkeeper, and him just absolutely losing his crap.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it'll make some great content, but yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it could go. It could work in your favor. You see, pops up Chelsea striker, and you go, "Oh no, that's terrible!" And then it pops Sam Kerr.
Yeah, well, this is true. This is true. One of the very few females that, one of the very few strikers that have played at Chelsea and actually done well. They announced evolution cards for Ultimate Team. Sort of seems like they're trying to jump onto the My Team thing from 2K, where you can actually evolve cards and make them better, which will be interesting to see what they've got going on there. Was there anything else for Ultimate Team that I missed?
They didn't show a whole lot.
No, not really. Okay, let's talk about the cringe. Figo, Drogba and Ronaldinho. And to a lesser extent, Erling Haaland.
Yeah. He looked pretty cool. But
what was he wearing?
That's what he wears. He wears those pajamas all the time. Have you not seen his like social media and stuff?
No, to be honest, I don't follow a lot of sports stars and stuff on social media.
Yeah, he wears like silk pajamas in his free time, like all the time.
But like they couldn't even get like. I don't even know what they were trying to do when they said that, or not say, but showed that Haaland was coming out. Like they tried to have this close up of him and had it all darked out, but you could quite clearly see it was him.
Yeah.
And then there was like flashes of light on his face and that, and like the crowd were like, "Is it? Isn't it? What? Are we supposed to see this?"
I mean, like his silhouette is pretty distinctive. You can't really mistake him for anyone.
But it was just, and then Figo and everyone coming on stage.
I was going to say on the Haaland point before you move on to the other guys that I also thought it was quite funny when they asked him about the cover.
Yeah.
And they asked him if he was pleased with it, and he sort of responded, "Yeah, it's okay."
It's not nice that you picked the photo from the game I scored 5 goals in.
Yeah, it's just such a like average football photo, you know. If they were going to have a photo of a shot or a goal instead of a kind of posed photo that they usually go for, they could have picked a better photo.
Well, they could have used the one that they used throughout the thing, like where they were
showing the trailer,
the hypermotion, like where he's
they should have used that. That would have been awesome.
Yeah. Like they've made such a big deal out of that whole moment and how it ties into the play styles and hypermotion and all that, which we'll get into in a second. But then they just go and throw this random. Well, I suppose it's not too random. Like it's one of the goals he scored, but I mean, it's actually like I was looking at the photo and I'm like, that's a cool picture, but it's actually really bad technique because his planted foot is so far away from the ball. It's everything you teach kids not to do.
Yeah, but he gets away with it because he's massive and lanky.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah. Unfortunately, fat blokes like me can't get away with that. My foot has to be next to the ball or I'm doing some major injuries.
Yeah.
So on to Figo, Drogba and Ronaldinho. Like, it was so cringy. So
it
cringy.
Absolutely was. Yeah. Especially Figo's.
Did you see the shot after, like, he walked off the stage? When, like, he was walking past the crowd?
Yeah.
It looked like he got off stage and went, I can relax and be me again. And, like, it looked like he was an old man. Like, he looked like he was starting to hunch over and was like, I don't want to be here, I'm too sore. I was like, wow. Like, even where they held it in this small little like warehouse. It felt badly put together at times.
Yeah, absolutely, it did.
Like
And of course,
no, go on.
and of course, Alex Scott having to like indicate that people needed to applaud again.
Yeah.
Instructing the crowd, the small crowd of people to applaud.
It was just, I mean, I don't know. Like, apart from that section there, where they had everyone sort of come out, I thought everyone spoke well, everyone got to the point, presented everything well. The screen that they were showing everything on was pretty cool. How it was sort of like folded up. But everything else about it just felt really poorly put together.
I also thought the trophy situation was a little bit contrived, because while they did have a couple of new trophies for the new leagues that they're adding, they also had the Premier League and the Champions League trophy coming up there, which they already had in the game, just to tell us that they've got like full licensing for these things, which again they already had.
Yeah, I think
so. I guess they've signed new contracts and they want to assure people
that was one of the points that they spoke about, wasn't it? That they'd made major long-term deals with La Liga, UEFA, and the Premier League.
Yeah.
To keep that stuff in the game, even though now that FIFA's not on board. Although I may have read somewhere the other week that they've signed some sort of deal with FIFA, but it's not anywhere like what it was.
I believe that's the case, and they still have their deal with FIFA Pro, which is the Players Association, the like International Players Association.
So I think there's some sort of deal there for like the World Cup and internationals.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's right.
They're not.
They just don't have the naming rights. Yeah.
And naming yet. And FIFA obviously looking into going into bed with 2K.
Yeah. On the Premier League point, they did mention that they will have likenesses for every player in the Premier League now. I don't know how realistic a target that is, because as far as I understand, they were meant to have that before and it didn't materialize.
No. Yeah. I mean, and some of the likenesses are terrible as it is. Like, looking through that trailer, Jack Grealish, body, hair, everything on point, face, generic.
Yeah.
It's like, who is that? Oh no, there's the hair, it's Grealish, it's all good. If he wasn't wearing a Man City kit, it probably wouldn't have been as obvious. And did you see the photo of Saka on the front? People reckon it looks like Rashford.
No, I don't think I did.
Go have a look at the picture on the Ultimate Edition with all the players with Haaland on the front, and there's a few dodgy faces on there.
I mean, with EA, they tend to get the cover stars and a few players from each team right, and they look really good.
Yeah.
And then everything else tends to look terrible. But Konami's managed to do it for years, where they make like every likeness look pretty decent. There's no reason that EA shouldn't be able to do it, really, but for whatever reason, they tend not to.
Yeah. So, Hypermotion V. What do you think to their new system on the Hypermotion?
I think it sounds like a great idea, but I'm not sure if it will materialize into much. I think, at least for the game's launch, you should see a bunch of new animations, that haven't really seen in an EA Sports football game before. However, their point that, a player can go and do something in a game 1 week, and by the next week it'll be in the video game, I just don't think that's realistic. No. they don't release updates often enough, and I just think they'll probably be too lazy to to do that sort of thing.
I think
But
they've
in
set the bar
theory,
very high
it's a
there.
good idea. Yeah, in theory, it's a good idea.
Which obviously then leads into the play styles, which, I mean, they've tried to do this sort of thing before, haven't they?
It's kind of already been in there for
Yeah,
years and years and
just
years. They've had
rebranding.
traits. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've had traits on the players in there for years. I think it will just be more um, malleable now. So you'll be able to actually change player traits at your wish, because with the existing system, traits were built into um, existing players, and you couldn't change them, and you couldn't add traits onto created players except for in pro clubs. So it sounds like that's changing now, and you'll be able to do
You
that
could
in
last
Ultimate
year,
Team.
couldn't you?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but yeah, it sounds like you'll be able to do that in Ultimate Team and Career Mode and all those kind
Yeah.
of modes now, that you'll be able to change all the players' play styles, as they're now calling them.
Yeah. Which, good thing, probably doesn't really do too much, especially not for us. Might for those doing Ultimate Team, but I mean, unless you really do a manager mode, it's probably not really going to do that much for you, is it?
They have to be scaled appropriately anyway, because otherwise you just get a striker with like some kind of pacey and finisher play style that's super OP and just scores like 10 goals a game. That all of a sudden the game's not balanced. So
Yeah, like they did last year with the Haaland Berlin Pro Clubs.
mm-hmm. Oh, it wasn't just in pro clubs. That's actually throughout the entire game.
Well.
Yeah.
So a few new things that they're bringing out as well. FC Online, which I did mean to look up because I didn't quite catch what it was all about. There was, I'll have a quick look now. Doesn't really say anything online anyway. Awesome. But yeah, they announced that FC Mobile, FC Tactics, and FC Pro, where they're streamlining more of their esports stuff to make it a bit everything sort of in one place for their World Cups and challenges and all that for esports.
I think it's really good, because I reckon the exposure of that stuff has gone down. Like, maybe more total people watch that stuff these days. I don't know, but it certainly feels like to me that the exposure of that, particularly the FIFA Interactive World Cup, or whatever they now call it these days, that's really gone down. I remember a time when it was very, very popular, and a lot of people seemed to watch it, and it was very clear when that was happening, and you were encouraged to take part in the game all the time, to kind of put yourself forward to try to earn a spot in that FIFA Interactive World Cup, and I just don't see an awful lot of it on the game these days.
No, I don't either. Like, you still obviously hear about all the big tournaments going on, but I don't seem to hear as much about the EA one.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the bit that really concerns us with pro clubs, and there was no news in the video. Awesome.
Nope.
But if you head over to EA Sports FC Football Club 24 fucking United website, they do offer a little snippet in the form of, I think, just over a paragraph. It's about 6 lines. To which they say that crossplay is coming, and it will be They worded this very, very fun, very... What's the word I'm looking for?
Oddly.
Yeah. But covering their own ass at the same time. So
Yeah, they did that last year.
it will be coming to all modes except ones that it doesn't work in. Yep. But they did say that this was under the Pro Clubs Volta section and said that it will be coming to this, but it's generational crossplay.
Okay. So you'll be able to do PS4 to PS5 or
No.
Xbox. Oh, okay. That's what they mean by generational.
Yeah,
so you can do Xbox to
Xbox,
PlayStation,
PC,
but you can't do right.
Xbox, PC, PS5, or Series
Right.
X will all play against each other. PS4 and Xbox One can play against each other, but PS4 to PS5 can't.
That actually makes more sense. It's the opposite of what you usually see. But in EA's case, given that they kind of have the game running differently, like on a different version of their engine, on the different platforms, it kind of makes sense, really. The game feels very different on current gen to previous gen consoles. So I suppose in terms of making the game still competitive for those who are playing on older consoles, that's probably necessary.
Yeah. And a new format for the seasons. This will be interesting, and I'm not quite sure how this is going to work or play out. But they state that the seasons are now going to end with playoffs.
Yes.
I don't know how to take that. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know what it even means.
It makes me a little bit worried about the matchmaking too.
Yeah.
We know, for example, with tournaments on pro clubs, that as soon as you get more than like a month or so into the game cycle, it's really hard to find tournament games. And it becomes even harder the further that you progress in the tournament. So once you start getting to the semi-finals, the final, it becomes almost impossible to find a game. I can see that kind of thing happening with a playoff.
I have a sneaky feeling that that's just because of where we are in the world.
Quite possibly.
I think in Europe and maybe the States, maybe even Asia, that the cup competitions probably go pretty hard. And maybe in Australia there's just not enough games happening that we're able to find games.
Quite possibly.
Like we're pretty lucky that we relatively find games with ease for the most part.
Yeah.
And we have through the whole cycle of PS5 with no crossplay.
Yeah.
So I think we've been pretty lucky there. So I think that might just be the case with the cups. I think it's just the fact that we're in Australia and there's just not enough cup games going on because everyone's like, well, if there's not enough cup games, right, either everyone's going to be playing cup games or no one's going to be playing cup games.
I think they also need to add more incentive to be playing the cups, to be honest.
Well, my thought was...
They don't really give you anything.
My thought was is that a thing? Like, are they trying to incorporate that in there? Like, is it more of a... Okay, you can win the league, but then the cup competition comes on the end of it. So you play your X amount.
So you're thinking like US style or even Australian rules.
Yeah, like a final series that then happens at the end of the season if you get to a certain amount of points. So you can still win the league, and like get the trophy. But then there's a cup competition that sort of follows the end of that.
Yeah, which you can only enter if you're in the top, whatever.
Yeah, if you hit a certain milestone within that.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can.
That
only
would be
do it
more
if
interesting.
if you actually get to the promotion.
Yeah.
I suppose
Interesting.
we haven't got long till we find out what the go is, and what is it now? September 20th.
Yeah, so perhaps for every division below Div 1, if you get promotion but don't win the title, then you actually do playoffs to see if you get promoted.
Yeah,
and if you get the title, you get automatic promotion.
Yeah, maybe that
could be like that.
Yeah. But then how would they put a playoff in Div 1?
Well, maybe there isn't one in Div 1, just like there isn't promotion in Div 1.
True. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll probably get some more info over the next... What are we in now? July. So what have we got? 2.5 months till the game releases. 22nd of September if you get the Ultimate Edition, and 29th of September for the Standard Edition. At this point, I'm actually almost... I'm in an hour and I'm going to get the Ultimate Edition.
Right.
Just because of my 24-hour stream that I'm going to do from the 29th through the 30th.
I suppose you can secure things like team names and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I can have everything set up, ready to go. So when we do that first stream on the 29th with FC24, that it will be all ready to go, set up, and I can start scoring more goals. Which, in saying that, we should probably end the show here because we need to go get some food and get ready for tonight's stream, where I am aiming to hit 500 goals. I think... Is it 500 I'm aiming for now? Or is it 400? No, I've already hit 400.
I think it's 500.
I think I'm going for 500.
Yeah.
500 and 200 assists. I think that's what I'm aiming for. We've got 2.5 months. Let's get it done. Anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Stick with us for next week's show. Hopefully we get a week like this where it's just jam-packed full of news that we can talk about, and we will think about next week's bracket, which is 1992.
Mm-hmm.
Getting closer to your year of birth, and more into the years where I think 92 the year I got the Game Boy. I reckon I got a Game Boy around 92, 93. So there's some games for me to start picking from maybe the Nintendo catalog.
Yeah.
So, but apart from that, don't forget to like, follow and subscribe on our socials, YouTube channel, and of course don't forget we are now on Spotify. We are trying to get everything, all the other podcasts, services around the world to work. We're just having a little bit of trouble with it at the moment. It's the fun and joys of trying to start all this and do this all yourself, between the two of us. And, well, there was supposed to be more of us, but at the moment they're not able to do this sort of stuff with us and don't really join us too much on stream. Speaking of which, Blowy's not going to be on the FIFA stream tonight. He said to me the other day he's got something on tonight. So it'll just be you and me. But yeah.
Cue Just the Two of Us by Grover Washington Jr.
I was thinking the Will Smith version. But anyway, from the Millennium album. But yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, socials. They're all in the links. They're in the bios. They'll be underneath this on Spotify. Go show us some love. Stu's got all his new stuff. We've even changed his... hang on, where is it? Down this way somewhere. It's right underneath him. Changed his Twitch account on the bottom there. So, yeah. We will see you all next week.
See you later, guys.